We're out of storage. Here we go. Whew.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal. We are acting as your lead blogger to fantasy glory, paving the way to fantasy excellence, making all of your football-related fantasies come true. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, the Wolf of Roto Street himself. And this is the car slow down and you roll out and run up to the house edition of the Fantasy Fullback Dive, because we're starting late. And as you know, this is already our tightest show. We got a lot to talk about, and we don't have much time to do it. So, Wolf, real quick, how you doing?
Doing wonderful. As you mentioned, got to get rolling, got to get going. Flying in from a family dinner to get you guys all the news you need, the early waiver wire for week 8, the risers, the fallers, the key players, the stats you need to know. Let's dive in right now. Truth, thumbs up button would be so greatly appreciated, everybody out there, to help us grow. Let's start with stud of the week. Who do we got that's going to win this honor this week, baby?
All right, well, we got some good studs. I thought it was a pretty lousy week of football, honestly, but Joe Burrow completed 33 of 42 for 481 and 3 touchdowns in the Bengals win against the Falcons. He also had 3 carries for 20 yards. Huge fantasy day. We were actually talking right before we went on the air. We were talking about the quarterback position in general. We were like, we got Allen, we got Mahomes. Who's the third best quarterback in football? We kicked it around. Jalen Hurts. We didn't buy that really. And then all of a sudden the Wolf had it. He's like, truth, it's Burrow. And I agree.
It's Burrow. Right. No doubt about it. As soon as we both came up with it, we did not argue. Burrow is by far the clear cut, if you were drafting today, the third best quarterback in real life and probably fantasy as well. Lamar would have something to say in fantasy wise, but still unbelievable. Not to be outdone. Jamar Chase, his lead weapon, 130 yards on 8 catches, 11 whopping targets, and 2 touchdowns, just destroying the field, wrecking the field all day. Not to be outdone, the running game by 2 monsters, though, Truth.
Maybe even 3 monsters, but Josh Jacobs, 143 yards on the ground, 3 rushing touchdowns. This is a great day for me. I had to just stream Derek Carr because of buys and stuff. You figure, the Raiders put up 38 points. Carr probably did pretty well. No, he didn't. Josh Jacobs did everything. We've talked about Jacobs. We've joked about him. We used to talk about how he sucked. His situation was lousy. The guy's a monster. He ran all over the Texans. Like I said, 143, 3 scores. Kenneth Walker, guy that the Wolf said, throw all your waiver money after. I mean, he's looking smart right now. When I stopped keeping track, he had a $168 and 2 touchdowns. That was with like 2 minutes left, so it's probably pretty close to his final stat line. The Seahawks embarrassing the Chargers. And when I said maybe 3 guys, Austin Eckler, not a very good rushing line. 9 rushes, 31 yards, and a touchdown, but he added 12 catches for 96 and a score. So, I mean, okay.
The monster.
Those are our guys. Those are our stud nominees.
If I told you your running back put up 30 points and he had 31 yards on the ground, you'd call me insane, except Austin Eckler. 12 fucking catches. Unbelievable. All those guys. Josh Jacobs, 6,500 on DraftKings, paying everybody off that 8th the chalk. What a day for the running back position for Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. Clearly, all of them deserve it. I would say, honestly, at this point, Josh Jacobs, given for the way that he's like just defied expectations and overridden whatever committee he was expected to be trapped in, I think he's got to get this honor because everybody that had him started in this week, everyone wanted to start him in DraftKings to be 6,500, and he delivered by a mile. So I go Josh Jacobs. How about you?
I also go Josh Jacobs. You can't look past 143 and 3 scores, and he was just dominant every time they needed a few yards. You know, they got it 1st and goal from the 4, and you were just like, they're going to hand it off to Jacobs, and he's going to score. And that's
he's going to get it every single time. He was automatic. Unbelievable points from him and everybody else. Why don't we dive into then stats that pop?
Wolf, do you want to switch things up a tiny bit just because we had some pretty serious injury news? And since we're so tight, do you want to hit the injuries first or do you want to go down the stats?
I think everybody here would probably benefit from hearing the injuries first. We'll hit the stats right after that. Wolfpack, we're going to dive into these injuries first. If you don't mind hitting that thumbs up button, we got about 20 or so you with us, even though we started late. My apologies on that front. It was my bad getting late from a family dinner. Some great conversations I got wrapped in that I couldn't cut short. So thank you again for being understanding. Hit that thumbs up button. We get out to more of you guys. It'd be so greatly appreciated as we dive into it. Because, as you mentioned, Truth, we have a bunch of stats we want to hit, but there's definitely some more injuries that are key. Starting at the top with Breece Hall. I mean, one of the most exciting rookies, one of the most dominant early seasons we've seen. He was diagnosed with a knee injury, would not return, and its early rumblings suggests a torn ACL. There's no final walked-in report. He does have to get the final MRI, but early testing suggests a season ender for Breece Hall. Pour one out for the guy, pouring out for his owners, but especially him himself. Looking like the next great running back, and hopefully you see the way people come back from ACLs these days. Let's hope that he's just the next Adrian Peterson who comes back and leads the NFL in rushing the year after torn ACL. He seems like he's made it that type of stuff. That's how elite Breece Hall has been, but man,
that's tough though, man. That's tough.
So, exactly. He was what a season this kid was putting on, defying expectations after a lackluster preseason. Was looking like a clear cut. Like right before the injury happened, me and my brother were talking like, if you drafted today, where would you take Breece Hall?
You texted me before he went out, and you just texted me Breece Hall like mid-first rounder.
Exactly. We couldn't name 6 people. That's why I texted you. I was like, I can't come up with 6 people I'd rather have than Breece Hall in fantasy right now. And of course,
and how quickly the fantasy gods can take away your joy.
And you know what's worse? Truth is, look at the next one. You can pick whoever you want. We have a list.
This is a very significant list of injuries we're looking at. Amon Ra St Brown, my guy. I was so excited to have him back in my lineup. I was pumped. Second play of the game, it was a 4-yard catch, but it was a catch. I was like, all right, my guy's a target hog. Takes a hit, kind of staggers to the sidelines, and all of a sudden he's out, and now he's a concussion, and he's in the protocol, and shit, you never know how that's going to go. So don't expect to see him next week. Who knows when we'll see him on Ra St. Brown.
No, at least, I mean, again, not that we're celebrating a concussion. Obviously, it sucks, and you prayers up, hope he's a speedy recovery. That blows, but what could be even longer is not only did Breece Hall have a knee injury, but DK Metcalf also did as well. Now, he didn't have to get carted off quite to the level, but he was on the cart once he got to the sidelines. So it did not look good. Any knee injury, you're dealing with at least a couple of weeks, probably, potentially even a
season. Could be a year.
Could be a year. So that sucks for him. So 2 big knee injuries to 2 big studs. Man, DK Metcalf seemed to get it rolling this year with Geno Smith. That really sucks. And a tight end that was finally emerging.
David Njoku. He was wearing a walking boot and using crutches after the Browns' Week 7 loss to the Ravens. That was a somewhat entertaining game. I didn't think it was particularly well played, but it did come down to the final play. Njoku was actually having a pretty good game. I want to say 7 or 8 catches for 70 or 80 yards. He was definitely a big factor, but who knows what's wrong with him. Walking boot and crutches, never a good sign. And the final guy I want to bring up, and I don't really have any information about it except another big-time receiver, Mike Williams, out, right?
Yeah, right at the end of the game. Might have been a concussion. I'm not exactly sure. Did you catch what it was?
No, I didn't. But I just know it's bad. So, I mean, we're talking about 3 very high-profile receivers.
Receiver one's running
boom, boom. Right.
Most carnage we've seen on a Sunday. So, again, I think that was right to switch gears and just talk about what a bloody Sunday this was. One of the worst in recent memory, to be honest, in terms of top 30 players, 6 of them we're talking about here. Brutal. Let's hope for the best again, that none of this is finally locked in. You'll have to keep tracking throughout Monday when the MRIs come in, what the scans show. But man, definitely an ugly Sunday for sure, with some ramifications that we'll have to talk about when we get to waiver wire and things of that nature.
Mike Clay has written an ankle for Mike Will. He done.
Oh, bad ankle too.
I don't know. You take that for what it's worth.
I just saw that out early. I assumed it was a concussion. I was on the drive home, so I didn't see. So it sounds like it's an ankle.
Well, Mike Clay, usually a pretty reliable source, so we'll see.
It's Mike Clay. All right. Why don't we hit you some studs that we did catch, some stats that pop both on the negative and positive side. Again, as we hit these real quick for you, Wolfpack, that thumbs up does help us get to more people. We'll hit the early week 8 waiver wire. As a reminder, I'll be live on Tuesday with a much more in-depth breakdown of all your top 10 to top 20, depending on how many we have that week. We'll bring into them, but we got definitely some guys that popped right away that are on the waiver wire. So we're going to momentarily.
Right. We're going to skip Joe Burrow because we talked about him for studs. Trevor Lawrence, however, went 22 of 43. Not a great completion percentage, but he did have 310 yards in the Jaguars. 23-17, Week 7 loss to the Giants. The Giants just keep kind of eking these games out. They are 6-1, believe it or not. That is 6-1. He also had 4 carries for 3 yards, but he did score.
Speaking of the Giants, Daniel Jones, 202 and a score, in addition to 107 and a touchdown on the ground on 11 rushes. Man, we got our next Konami quarterback, Danny J, and ultimately him and Trevor Lawrence, both in the top 7 quarterbacks so far for Week 7. Just crazy stuff. And we get to May in negatives. These 2 are probably going to stay in your top 7 quarterbacks of the week. Crazy, ugly week for the most part.
The Meh category filled by Dak Prescott. I hesitate to even put this guy. I mean, I don't know. I guess it is by definition a Meh game, but man, I was not impressed. 19 out of 25, 207 yards and a touchdown. Just didn't look like much. Maybe Meh is the right word. I was underwhelmed. They beat the Lions, who are terrible, but he was okay. He looked like Cooper Rush.
He did. You get the best matchup in the league. Yes, I understand you have to shake off Rush, but against the freaking Lions, you should be putting up 350.
They were down like 6-3, like maybe at halftime or something.
What a disappointing game overall. Yeah, ugly on the other side of the
rock. And speaking about the other guy in that game, no, he definitely is not good enough to be met.
21 of 26, Jared Goff, 228, scoreless yards, 2 interceptions, 4 total turnovers. Got me a whopping 1.5.
1.4, right?
1.4. Awful stuff. Jared Goff, no longer a must play. I understood the thesis of like horrible defense has to chase points. I don't care if it's a chase points. He's going to turn over the ball. He's a fucking piece of shit. I'm done with him cutting it. I'll wait till Tuesday to cut this motherfucker.
Lamar Jackson, 9 out of 16 for $120 in the air. And then he added 10 rushes for 59 yards, which for him is ho-hum. I mean, he scored less than 10 fantasy points. His team did escape and win against the hapless Browns. But that is, you're looking for more than like 9.5 fantasy points from Lamar Jackson.
There's no one we've got dumped on more than, remember we recorded like Lamar is the most overrated quarterback in fantasy video. Now, That was a stretch given that he's had a couple 40-point days and he has cheat.
Okay, but like,
we've seen half of his games have been 12 to below duds though. That's what the whole argument against him was, is that he is unreliable. He goes up and down. It's a merry-go-round. When we're talking about Lamar Jackson's and Jalen Hurts, I said Jalen Hurts over Lamar. That was the whole thesis of my take. Was Lamar is so overrated because you have to take him 2 rounds before you take Jalen Hurts. So that side of things, you want to keep dumping on me for calling Lamar overrated. Yes, I get he's had a better year overall than I've expected. He's had 3 to 4
so far, but we're 7 weeks in, and we'll see what ends up being his final stat line. We'll see.
Who knows what Tom Brady's final stat line is? The Bucks lose to the Panthers. The Panthers. Tom Brady just lost to the Panthers.
They could have gotten shut out in this game, dude. They didn't have a first down.
Awful.
For 3 quarters?
A bad defense. This is where you see Tom Brady just
no
smash
CMC.
People. Awful. We'll talk about the running game that actually did impress, at least Foreman-wise. Looked pretty good. But Brady, on the other end, 290 scoreless yards. You're getting nothing by the legs. Awful performance. So disheartening to see this Bucs team just completely suck.
They're awful. And I mean, it was only a week ago that you were saying to me, and I didn't think you were wrrong, hey, I could see the Bucs ended up being the team that comes out and goes to the NFC Championship. And I was like, yeah, why not? Because who else is there? But no way, man.
No way. You can't beat the Panthers. Sit down on your couch.
They got beat pretty decisively by the Panthers.
Easily. Handily.
Right. Let's talk about Matt Ryan, the guy that I was forced to stream this week because Jalen Hurts was on bye. That was a real just like cram it up the truth's ass. So was everything else this week, by the way. That was just one of many things I had crammed up there. Matt Ryan completed 33 of 44 for 243, 1 touchdown and 2 picks. Honestly, the stat line seemed worse than that when I was watching him. They lost 19-10 to Tennessee.
It's crazy to think he played worse than a 243, 1 and 2.
But didn't you think he did? I mean, there was at least 1 pick six. I feel like there might have been another pick six called back, and then he got picked.
I agree, Truth. It was uglier than that somehow sounds. Like you couldn't think that looks uglier than it sounds. It was. It
was terrible. He was awful. They lost by 9. It seemed like they probably should have lost by 35. Anyway.
Absolutely.
And the Titans sucked. The Titans had the 30th best defense in the league or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Exactly.
And they're picking him off like I was the one out there throwing.
We'll move to the running back position. The first one, I'll really quickly breeze over. 24 yards, 24 carries, 110 yards for Saquon Barkley, 25 yards to the air as well. Just a classic workhorse day. Didn't find the end zone, but good stuff. More surprising performance, though, and probably more impactful fantasy-wise, Travis Etienne. Maybe the single biggest riser across any position today, but certainly at running back, in my opinion. 14 carries, 114 yards and a score, in addition to 1 catch, 5 yards, just completely and utterly taking over that backfield. In fact, James Robinson just had 1 target, didn't catch it, off the field for the vast majority of the game. So needless to say, the biggest loser of the day, probably James Robinson in terms of fallers, but Travis Etienne has taken over this backfield, and he showed very little reason to go backwards. He looked explosive all day on his 14 touches. So loved to see Travis Etienne with a breakout performance today.
Aaron Jones, and by the way, before I talk about Aaron Jones, we didn't mention this guy in quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers blows too. Okay, now he did end up having he had an 18-point fantasy game, but that's ridiculous. I was watching him, he was awful. The Packers are terrible. I've been telling you the Packers are terrible for like a month. And
he got outdueled by Taylor Heineke. I mean,
he did get outdueled. You're right. Heineke outdueled him. Aaron Jones had 8 rushes for 23 yards. That's nothing to write home about. He did add 9 receptions, little dink and dunk receptions for 53 yards and 2 scores on 10 targets. Basically, the offense of the Packers is like dink and dunk running back passing. And it was not enough to beat the Commanders without Carson Wentz. So there you go.
Exactly. It got you done for fantasy-wise, the 2 scores, but still, ugly day. Derrick Henry, 30 carries, 128, home run on the ground, additional 3 catches for 10 yards. That's like the big thing with Derrick Henry is this added like 3 to 4 catches a week.
Right.
It goes a huge way to keeping him like that much higher of a ceiling. Didn't find the end zone, but ultimately just rode to the ground, and that's what he does. Good stuff from Derrick Henry, as always.
Washington running backs, Brian Robinson, I was shot a couple times and I'm still back playing hard, whereas like people like Mike Thomas like ding their toe and they can't play for like a year and a half. Brian Robinson rushes 20 times for 73 yards. He also had 2 catches for 13 on both targets. He did catch both passes. Antonio Gibson added 10 rushes for 59, 3 receptions for 18, and he also had a score. Those were 3 catches on 4 targets. Pretty encouraging, although I would not get too excited. I just think the Packers are like way worse than anyone thinks they are.
They really are. And I guess it was like nice to see Robinson get so much work, but 35 snaps, 29 for Gibson, really close to a 50-50 split here. The big thing was McKissick, just nowhere to be found. If you've been rostering him as the lead pass catcher, holding on to the PPR value, ran 9 routes compared to 12 for Gibson. The lead pass catching back for this team saw 4 targets compared to 2 for McKissick. So the big news here is cut McKissick. The other 2 guys, Robinson and Gibson. I've seen Gibson cut in a handful of leagues. He should be rostered whether he's traded or not. He looked very explosive today. Looked like the better, honestly, option. But Robinson had some real nice runs too. So I wanted to mention him. Probably the highest waiver wire pick. We'll definitely revisit this guy when we get to the waiver wire backs. But Gus Edwards, 16 carries, 66 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Legitimately looking spry. Like, the bus has always been a thick dude. I thought he looked like trim, like sexy.
Lenny.
This was a like coach bus. This is no longer the plotty, gross school bus. This was Gus Edwards. I'm here to just be a monster. Now, granted, you look at the backfield, it was the classic. 23 snaps for him, 20 for Hill, 17 for Drake. Like, so it was a mix, but Edwards was by far the dominant share with 16 carries.
I mean, Drake looked like Drake was garbage.
Awful. Absolute garbage. So clear. I think he'll be worked out of this rotation far faster. But to be just like your first game back, 16 carries, 2 touchdowns, the clear lead horse.
Yeah.
Love to see it from Gus, and he looked sprier than I'm used to.
We talked about the Panthers, surprising backfield, just surprising everything. Gosh, I don't even know what to say about that. But anyway, Deontay Foreman, 15 rushes, 118, also had 2 catches for 27. Chuba Hubbard also added 9 rushes for 63. That's 7 yards a clip. He also had a touchdown, and he had 2 catches for another 10. I mean, this is without CMC. I mean, if they can get this out of their backfield. I mean, remember, Tampa Bay supposedly has a good defense. Clearly they don't. But, like, this was an impressive running game by the Panthers today.
Nearly 200 yards for a bad offense overall against, like you mentioned, the 32nd in terms of points allowed, the worst matchup for running backs. They steamrolled them. It was a 27 snaps to 23. Foreman, Hubbard advantage to Foreman, but obviously clearly close to a 50-50. It did seem like Foreman eventually kind of got that hot hand. It was better on his receiving work again with 27 yards on 2 targets. Looked pretty good there. Just 10 yards on his 2 catches for Hubbard. But I would say definitely Foreman looked like the better option here, more explosive against, like you mentioned, a pretty good run defense. In terms of the Cowboys, Zeke looking solid, 2 touchdowns capping off the drives, 57 yards, 15 carries. So a meh, in terms of efficiency, but overall just a nice day for Zeke. Had a couple runs where he looked pretty damn solid. He ultimately played 32 snaps, though, to 40 for Tony Pollard. The first time we've seen Tony Pollard see more snaps than Zeke. Looked pretty good, too, but Zeke did see 15 carries to 12 for Pollard. But Pollard also explosive himself. So keep that in mind that the final stat line did look solid for Zeke, but we actually saw this backfield flip for the first time in
we did.
ever.
Yeah, we did. Chubb, 16 rushes, 91 yards and a touchdown. This is pretty ho-hum Nick Chubb stuff. We've grown to accept it from. We talked about who's the best actual quarterback in the NFL. This guy might actually be the best running back in the NFL. Just puts up numbers every single week. The Browns suck. Maybe they're not as bad as we thought they would be, but they're still pretty bad. He also had 2 catches for 16. So solid game for Nick Chubb.
And what's crazy is, and maybe some people try to sell high and say, you know, when Watson's back, that Chubb is going to suddenly tank.
No, that's ridiculous.
The guy has averaged over 6 points more in wins than losses. And right now the team is clearly far worse than they will be with Watson.
I think the game script would actually, you would suspect it would favor him more. I mean, if they were actually like ahead in some of these games, I mean, what guy would you rather just be handing the ball off to than Nick Chubb?
Nobody. In the May category, Jonathan Taylor, 10 carries, 58 yards, in addition to 7 catches. That was the big thing. 7 catches.
That's the only reason this is a May game.
Exactly.
Because, like, it would have been right.
And no scores, looked bad, but higher passing game involvement. We did see Hines also get 5 catches on 5 targets, so he was heavily involved, 41 yards as well through the air. It's just a committee. It's like, come on, you have the best back in the league.
I know, it's a committee. Jonathan Taylor's in a committee for this crappy ass team.
You give Deion Jackson 10 targets and like 20 carries, but not Taylor. It doesn't make sense to me. It sucks. But yeah, I guess I keep trying to buy low on Taylor, though. I still think ultimately he's going to be the best back for the last half of the season, or close.
I don't
to
think
it. Maybe
so.
Not the best back.
I don't think
like
so.
Top four probably.
Maybe. Jamal Williams, 15 rushes, 79 yards. That's a pretty mad performance. DeAndre Swift, obviously out. Williams has proven he can run the ball. I mean, it's 5.5 yards a carry. Good job. Didn't really do much. The Lions just pretty much looked terrible. Most of that probably Jared Goff's fault, but whatever. Mad game. And then rounding out the mad guys, Rachaad White, 6 rushes, 24 yards, adding a catch for 8 yards. And we're going to be getting to his stablemate back there, Lenny Fournette, when we hit the negative guys.
Yeah, he did play Lenny Fournette 40 snaps to 29 for White. That's about as close of a gap as we've seen. And Fournette himself, 8 carries, 19 yards. Ooh, ugly. 2 catches, 7 yards. He's been so damn good all year. But this was definitely against a bad Panthers run defense. A cause for concern, but how bad this team looked. We already mentioned too, J-Rob. No catches, no carries, 1 target. Oh boy, yeah. He's toast. He's done.
We did. It was so funny. I was whenever the shared document that we fill in goes up, I'm always looking for like negative stat lines and stuff. And you were literally like a second ahead of me on like these next 2 guys. I was like, AJ Dillon was awful, and then I just see that you've put in AJ Dillon rushed 4 times for 15 yards. Remember how high we were on this guy? Going into the season. I mean, this has been an absolute joke for him. Also, and we mentioned Kenyon Drake, 11 rushes for 5 yards. Wow.
Brutal. And I just want to, so truth, by the way, so I'm looking at Etienne and James Robinson's snap counts. 57 of the 71 snaps went to Etienne, just 12. So 57 snaps for Etienne, 12 for James Robinson, 24 routes for Etienne, 4 for James Robinson, 14 carries to Etienne, 0 for James Robinson. 5 targets for Etienne, 1 to James Robinson, which he did not catch. Oh, boy.
I mean, did you see this coming in any sense?
No, there was no signs.
That's what I'm saying. It's like this is such a massive discrepancy between their usage rate and obviously production is attached to that. I had no idea it was going this way.
It was a fairly close game all the way through, too, so you couldn't be like they were clearly down. It was an Etienne script, or they were clearly up. It was like Robinson. It was just about a dead even split. It just seems like they decided this is the week we're giving the keys up to Etienne. He was in on goal line snaps too. Like it was very, very clearly the Etienne show on early downs that no other back had ever seen that type of work, regardless of what the game script should have suggested. I think definitely moving forward, Etienne, you can lock in the lineups. Robinson, I guess hold on to him for a week or 2 at most, but this was definitely the Etienne show moving forward. And moving to the wide receiver position, Chase, as we mentioned in the studs, 11 targets, 8 catches, 130, 2 scores, a beast. Evans was fairly close, certainly out-targeted him, 15 targets for Mike Evans, 9 catches, 96 yards, did not find the end zone, but he would have been in contention for the start of the week had he not dropped like a 70-yard touchdown that went off his hands to begin the game. Brutal start, but he ultimately ended up playing okay with 15 targets on the back of that volume.
Evans, 9 catches on 15 targets, 96 yards. That's great. You said he did have the big drop. He didn't look right to me.
No.
I mean, like, didn't he look slow? And, like, I saw him, like, really just go through the motions on a few routes. that maybe that's just a testament to how great he is because he still had a good game. But I didn't feel like this guy was anywhere near 100% today.
No.
DJ Moore, 7 catches on 10 targets for 69 and a touchdown in Carolina's Week 7 win. DJ Moore resurgence, maybe?
I guess so. I mean, no Christian McCaffrey, no Robbie Anderson. This is what you wanted to see because it's like if he didn't do it today with none of those guys around, if he had yet another like 4-target, 2-catch, 15-yard day, then it's like when would you ever even want this guy on your roster at this point? So great to see that they had no other options with DJ Moore. And they decided to actually go to him, and he performed. I mean, his touchdown catch was beautiful. This guy is a great talent. It was nice to see them force feed him finally, and for him on that 21-yard score to come through with, again, 7-catch, 69 touchdown day, like a nice, solid wide receiver 2 stat line. We're not saying he lit the world on fire, but just nice to see that when he gets used, he produces. Christian Kirk, similarly, 10 targets, 7 catches, 96 yards. So not a monster day, not a huge touchdown or anything of that nature, but back in the groove, back with around a 28% target share. So good to see for Christian Kirk today.
Terry McLaurin, not a huge stat line, but it was enough to really power the Commanders past the Packers. 5 catches, 8 targets, 73 yards, 1 touchdown from Taylor Heineke. There you go.
Looking at the rest of the receivers for the Bengals behind Jamar
they all
Chase,
ate today.
When you have a 450-yard aerial pie and 4 touchdowns, everyone's going to eat, including Tyler Boyd, 155 yards and a score to kick off the action with that beautiful touchdown. 93 yards and 5 catches for T. Higgins. Should have had a touchdown. That was a sheesh moment. Ultimately did not get challenged, but he scored on that reach. And as mentioned again, 130 yards and 2 scores for Jamar Chase. Just a monster day for an aerial pie. The Bengals are like, this is the closest thing to Josh Allen that I think we're going to get this year is, and I know he's not as mobile, Joe Burrow, but they are back. This line is finally gelling, giving him time. I think we're going to be able to depend on this Bengals offense moving forward the rest of the year.
And, everybody said moving into the season, the Bengals are going to regress. And we have seen them start off a little choppy. I mean, I think that the Bengals are clearly in the much tougher conference. So, I mean, if you told me, hey, they're not going to make it to the championship game or they're not going to make it to the Super Bowl, I wouldn't think that was crazy. I think the Bengals are probably maybe like a top 6 team in the NFL. I don't know. I mean, I think they're pretty good. Parris Campbell, your boy. 10 catches on 12 targets for 70 yards and a touchdown. And the Colts lost to the Titans. I mean, that's a pretty gaudy stat line. I admit it.
Yeah. Ended up having a huge day, much to the expense of Alec Pierce, who ended up with 5.2 fantasy points. I believe 2 catches. Did not do much at all. So it sucks for me because I was definitely more in on Alec Pierce today. This is 2 weeks in a row. Parris Campbell has played all the snaps and had 2 huge stat lines. Maybe we get to the waiver wires in a sec. We'll be bringing him back up. But big day for him. Ultimately, McCole Hardman, talking about waiver wires, 3 touchdowns on the day, 4 catches, 32 yards. 2 of them were on the ground. It's just that cute little weird cheap offense that is always doing.
He's gross, man. Come on.
I don't know that I can trust him. Like this is.
I know you can't trust him. I know you can't.
There we go. Exactly.
Are you kidding me? Yeah, go all in on that guy on waivers. See how he does the next 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Chris Godwin. I mean, serviceable performance. 13 targets, 7 catches, 43 yards in Tampa's loss to Carolina.
Yeah, 3 for 3 on 4 targets for Amari Cooper, 74 yards, a solid day. Another guy too that I don't think we have written down here, but Wan'Dale Robinson ultimately finishing with like a respectable 6 catches, 50 yards, a nice 8 points. The only negative here was it happened almost all. I think actually all of it happened in the first half. So I'm not sure if he got dinged up or what happened there. I'll try to dig more in. Ultimately did finish the day with 27% target share, 28% target share on his routes, ran 81% of the routes after 35% last week. So very, very nice usage. The only concern is that so much of that usage came in the first half. I mean, he was at like a 50% target share to start the game. I don't know what necessarily happened in the second half. So that's something I want to dig into more, but very, very interesting there.
You skipped CeeDee Lamb. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but he caught 4 balls on 6 targets for 70 yards. That's meh.
It was meh. Exactly. First game back with Dak was his worst game in 3 games. Like, was doing better with Cooper Rush. I don't know. Meh. We already talked about Parris Campbell having a monster day, and it was at the expense of Alex Pierce. But also Michael Pittman did see 9 targets, but only hauled in 6 for 58 yards. Like, if he's not that classic 13 targets, we know he's not going down the field. So if now Parris Campbell is going to be this much of a monster. Again, 11 targets last week, 12 looks this week, 23 looks through 2 weeks is a ton for Parris Campbell. It definitely makes this whole attack a little bit more sketchy.
Alan Lazard putting up an Alan Lazard-esque stat line, 6 catches, 55 yards. That's pretty much, you can pencil him in for that in the Packers Week 7 loss. However, he did outdo his wide receiver core mate, Romeo Doubs, targeted 4 times, caught none of them. That did not help the team at all.
No, certainly didn't help him. Speaking of goose eggs,
speaking of somebody who caught no balls.
I feel bad for this one because we definitely have been hyping up Michael Gallup as first look on your waiver wire. Is Michael Gallup out there? A must hold. Can't wait for this guy to get back with Dak. 2 targets, 0 catches, 0 points. Certainly, there's more production out there, including Wan'Dale Robinson, who we just talked about, and certainly some of the other names we bring up. I don't think Michael Gallup is a must-hold by any stretch of the imagination right now.
We have had at least one comment in the comment section that said, and I quote, "Fuck Michael Gallup."
Hey,
Drake London, he caught a 9-yard pass, and the Falcons lost the Bengals, and that was it.
And that was it. This is now 4 straight duds, I think, for Drake London, and weirdly, Demir Bird's catching the
him and Kyle Pitts really in just the shitty players on the Falcons category recently. Well, Pitts all year. London at least had a couple good games.
Yeah, 3 catches, 9 yards on 5 targets for Kyle Pitts.
That's my boy.
Oh my God, he is horrible.
Really
Alec Pierce, we mentioned, came at the expense, 37 yards, 3 of 4 targets, not good. Josh Reynolds, recommended streamer by us today, not so hot. 1 catch, 2 targets, 8 yards, even without Amon Ra for the entire game. Just a horrendous performance from Jared Goff. Showed the devastatingly low. The Lions are going to give up the points. Who knows if they can actually chase them anymore. Horrible, horrible day.
Keenan Allen, 2 catches, 11 yards. I got nothing else to say.
No, Cade Otton, 64 catches. Huge day. Monster space. No,
64 catches on the day.
Monster day. 64 yards, though. 4 targets, 4 catches on 5 targets. Remains whenever he plays, he runs about 90% of the routes, 95% of the snaps. Solid just chemistry with Brady every time he's there. Cade Otton makes plays. Really big fan of this tight end, especially if they're going to miss time with Cameron Brate here.
I don't know George Kittle's final stat line, but I will say when I stopped keeping track, he had 8 catches for 96 and a score, which even if that's where he stopped, that's an excellent tight end game. So good for you, George Kittle, although the Niners did end up getting blown out.
Yeah, 698 touchdown, a week after having 10 targets, 8 catches, 83 yards.
Yeah.
It seems like Kittle's back, especially when this team is forced to throw. It is going to be up or down, but right game scripts, you can go to Kittle as a locked-in top 4 tight end. Dalton Schultz did see 5 targets, hauled them all in, 49 yards. I guess it's better than the 0 he was getting you. It's nice to see Dak and him gain that kind of rapport, but overall, just a really, really underwhelming day. Probably one of the bigger storylines of the day is just how underwhelming Dak and this Cowboys offense was.
Ben Tomzik has put in the comments, game has started, boys. Cheers. We're going to blow through these negative tight ends. Kyle Pitts, we talked about it, targeted 5 times, caught 3 of them for a whopping 9 yards. Good for him.
Yeah, the number 1 tight end in the year, Mark Andrews, no catches today. Maybe he wasn't at 100. Who knows? He did have a rush for 4 yards. Woo. Thank you, Mark Andrews. Very, very helpful there. Jelani Woods also 1 catch on 2 targets, really acclimating him to the offense, as they said. We have about 30 with you here with a Wolfpack. We're going to hit our quick ad for you, and then we will wrap up with your early waiver wire. We already hit your injuries here. Wolfpack, that thumbs up. Subscriptions if you're catching the replay and you like what we do here. We hit all your questions 4 times a week. Would be so greatly appreciate you. Help us grow. Easy way to do it is that thumbs up button or hitting that sub button for us. We are brought to you today by No House Advantage. They are changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform today. Playing pick'em contests versus other people for your shot at winning $250K plus in cash. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, and earn points for correct picks to climb the leaderboard for your shot to win big money every day. You can also test your skills versus the house in 20 extra entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5-player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Sign up now with promo code RSJ at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app in app stores to get a first deposit match up to $25. Make sure to check out No House Advantage today. Experience daily sports redefined, because it's not just how you play, but where you play. You will not want to miss this out. Wolfpack. Alrighty, we hit your injuries. Just rewind if you missed them earlier.
but
on to the waiver wire. I think a clear-cut top guy, truth. For
no
us.
question about it. Gus Edwards, who kind of emerged as, even though there was a wild, amount of, it was spread out as far as snap counts and stuff. Gus Edwards, 16 rushes, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns. Obviously was the main guy this week in the backfield. He's owned anywhere from 40 to 50% on waivers. You know how I feel about the Ravens backfield, but if you guess the right guy, it could pay off. And if it ends up being Gus going forward, I mean, you could have yourself RB2, maybe even an RB1.
I see no way how it's not Gus. I mean, for his first game back to get that much work, I get that the snaps, like multiple 3 backs, see 20-plus snaps today. That looks ugly on paper, but again, they went to Gus when they needed anything, especially in the red zone. So he looked healthy. He looked faster than the last time we saw him out here. And with J.K. Dobbins laid up from 4 to 6 weeks now with a knee surgery, I love Gus as a nice rock-solid RB2 moving forward, as is, I think, Donta Foreman, right around 20% roster. A lot of people dropped him heading into today because Chuba Hubbard was named the starter, but it was Donta Foreman. It was a hot-hand situation, and Foreman outcarried him 15-10, and deservedly so. Saw 118 yards, also adding 2 catches for 27 yards. Now, Chuba did score, ultimately had the productive day that way fantasy-wise, but it did look like Foreman with far more productive runs throughout the day. He looks like he could be the heartbeat of this offense moving forward. Definitely, if you miss out on Edwards, I think Foreman's right up there for, I'd say, 40% spend on Gus Edwards, maybe 25, 30% on Donta Foreman. This is going to be a very good week 8 waiver wire. I will just say that right from the top. Big fan of the waiver wire prospects this week.
If you're skeptical of Parris Campbell, I don't blame you. You have every reason to be. However, he did have 10 catches. He was targeted 12 times. It was a 27% target share. He did get in the end zone. A lot of passes thrown like near the line of scrimmage that really helped him out. A lot of catch and run, stuff like that. You can't really deny production like that. Keep in mind, the Colts did nothing today, and he still had a very viable fantasy game. So if you're short on receiver, and we did have some receivers go down, he might be worth looking at.
27% target share. Yeah, 12 targets this week, 11 last week. That's insane. I mean, that is the most volume by far the Colts have seen in back-to-back weeks. Again, I love Alec Pierce, but this is going to definitely put a ding on his value. And Parris Campbell may be the more valuable guy moving forward. Looking at the Cleveland Browns, we saw 7 targets go Donovan Peoples-Jones' way. And I keep highlighting this guy on the waiver wire here, but that was a team-high 7 targets compared to just 4 for Amari Cooper. Had 71 yards on his 6 catches. And I want to keep emphasizing it's only going to go uphill when Deshaun Watson, who I think both of these guys, Deshaun Watson at 13% rostered, Donovan Peoples-Jones around 15%. Both of those guys need to be on your waiver wire. I know, again, that we won't see Deshaun Watson until that week 13 matchup against the Texans. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, great deep ball accuracy coming from Deshaun Watson. They had apparently the best rapport of any receiver was DPJ and Deshaun Watson. So that could be league winning down the stretch. And either way, Donovan Peoples-Jones getting you nice production heading into it.
Couple tight ends, available that we talked about. And we've talked about the tight end position and just what a crapshoot it is and how there's really just a couple guys at the top. And then after that, who the hell knows? Cade Otton, 4 catches, 5 targets. We talked about this, 64 yards in Tampa's week 7 loss. He did have the longest catch of the day. It's funny. There are a couple guys that put up good receiving numbers as far as catching the ball for Tampa Bay. They still did nothing. But Otton is maybe an intriguing look. I mean, if you're somebody like me, you're sinking money into Kyle Pitts every single week. Why not? Evan Ingram also 4 catches on 7 targets for 67 in the Jaguars week 7 game. There's another guy. You could do a lot worse than Evan Ingram. There's just not much at tight end. So if you're not happy with what you've been getting at the position, either one of these guys might be a welcome reprieve.
Yeah, other than that, like I said, top heavy week on the waiver wire. Definitely some guys I think are big and definitely worthwhile spending your money on. Other than that, I don't know if we're missing it. I did see Antonio Gibson dropped in a bunch of leagues and ultimately put up 15.2, as we mentioned, 10 carries, 59 yards, in addition to that receiving touchdown, 18 yards and a score through the air. So I guess double check if Gibson was dropped in your league. Other than that, truth, I don't know if I'm missing anybody, but I feel like that kind of covers the early waiver wire. I would say, I guess the game has already started. I was going to say Pickett might make an interesting bench stash heading into this week. Monday Night Football, we did talk about this, me and CJ, but if you had some bench trash today that you just didn't like what you saw, Tyquan Thornton, about 5% rostered right now, had 2 touchdowns gets the Monday night game, and Bourne expected to be inactive and expected to be traded within the next week or two. I think Thornton makes a really good stash. And even if you missed out on him, if Bourne got traded to, say, the Packers, the Chiefs, maybe Bourne could come into some real value too. So a couple other guys. Yeah.
I think we need to stop throwing the Packers in that if so-and-so got traded to the Packers, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, you can say it for the Chiefs. I'm not convinced that someone's going to make a big difference on the Packers. I think they're terrible.
They might just be a number one receiver away. I think Claypool.
I don't know, man.
Kendrick Bourne's not that number one. I'm with you there. I could see Claypool being the receiver that elevates them and gets them back to a competitive level. Maybe not, though.
I'd be shocked. I really would.
The other receiver I did want to mention, we talked about him earlier, was McCole Hardman. Just a reminder on him, 24% rostered.
Be careful.
Be careful. But he has seen in the last 3 weeks, 10, 11.7, and 26 points across his last 3 weeks. Pretty good snap share.
It's not bad.
There is where. So, he's getting it done, probably more consistent. I guess Juju, too, has come into more.
Juju had a pretty big game today, I feel like.
Yeah, he did.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Scoring as well. No, he had a big day as well. Trust me, I was facing a Mahomes Juju connection. I was having a good day until that one definitely smashed me later. So, yeah, those are some early waiver wire guys. Again, guys, be live at 7 o'clock on Tuesday to go more in depth on either of these names or anyone else that pops in that we missed. Sweet, the game is live. We do have a bunch of comments. Truth, do we mow through them? It looks like a lot of people have left them.
Let's just mow through real fast. Craig says, first off, fuck off Matt Ryan, fuck bye weeks. Also, I traded Herbert for Wilson Jr. a week ago. I should tell you, my year's going. Hope you fellas are doing better than me. Well, guess what, Craig? Guess what, Craig? I'm not.
No.
I'm not. Seriously, I'm not. Charlie says Burrow to the moon. Damn right. Kevin Rice. Motherfucking. I love that people are just angry in these comments. This is good.
You know how it goes too. Burrow's one of those guys this week. It's if you ran into the Burrow buzzsaw, there's nothing you could have done. Very, very unlikely. If you saw Burrow, there's a 95% chance you lost this week. Sometimes
because there was that one thing is because there was no quarterback counter. There was no quarterback that even came close to matching. Right. All of our other studs were running backs or wide receivers.
Exactly.
And if you had the Burrow Chase stack, forget about it. Right.
Seriously.
Kevin Rice, motherfucking DK and Mike Will going down today. Throw me in a fucking pit. Kevin, I'll bet I'm in a deeper pit than you, but I'm sorry that you're.
At least Mike Will got it done before he got hurt.
Sorry you're in the pit with me. We need the Pittsburgh defense and Myers to not outscore. I don't know, Freiermuth.
Yeah.
By more than 5. Tomorrow is going to be hell rooting for the Pats, but against Myers, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Giuseppe, my guys went 1-3 this week, bye week hell, but on to next week, long season. We're still confident.
It happens. This is one of those weeks. A lot of good teams probably lost because you had a lot of Bills. You had some tough buys. Eagles this week, Vikings even a good offense. Rams as bad as they've been. Some big fantasy players there. This is a tough week.
Richard B. agree with Truth. It was a lousy week of football. I really think it was, Richard. Pretty bad.
Overall, it's a bad week, yeah.
I love the Roth Tiberius Kane name. Kiss my ass, Michael Gallup. That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're not. Are you not doing trades right now, Wolf?
Yeah, no trades.
Okay. Andrea says hi, everyone.
Good to see. Andrea's so polite every time.
I know, seriously. Love Andrea. Roth Tiberius Kane, head Walker, shaking my head. That's what I get. Toon said, I picked up Edwards. I left him on the bench. I had Burrow, so I only need 7 points from Stevenson and Claypool. Like your chances, Toon.
Yeah.
Said if I was Jacobs, I would tell off Las Vegas if they try to sign him now.
Yeah, right.
Jeremiah says, I'm up 6 against my father-in-law. I've got Herbert. He's got Mostert. I got the win locked in, right?
I don't know about that. No. Herbert, it's a hot hand situation, so Herbert should take it over, but the Pats might just shut down that whole run game.
Locked in, no. Probably the favorite, but not locked in at all.
I would call it 50-50.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I made it, guys. What's up? Sorry we didn't have a chat. We started too late today, David.
Oh, yeah, I know. He's here. I'm glad you commented in. We didn't get the video chat up here.
Jeremiah has done that.
Yeah, he's beat us to the comment.
Daniel Hallen forced to start Goff, St. Brown, DK, and London calling this week a schedule loss. Wow. That's
scheduled loss, baby. Yeah, that's tough.
That's brutal. Announce this, Truth. Phillies pennant. Okay. Phillies pennant.
Announce it, Truth.
I know. I did it.
You did.
Penguin 0. Can't believe it. He has Breece Breece Hall and Mike Williams. Yeah, man.
Tough day.
Sorry,
this was by far the worst injury week of the year so far. Let's hope it's the worst that we see the week this year. That was
Dylan
bad.
says
really bad.
20-man league format. He traded Dobbins for Kenneth Walker and Carr 2 weeks ago.
Flex, one super flex, and a 20-man. There's not even enough quarterbacks.
I know.
You're a nutcase, Dylan. What is this league?
Yeah, that's insane. But good for you.
But honestly, by the way, traded Dobbins for Walker and Carr.
Oh, Buddy just traded Breece for Connor and Mostert. And that I would have said that was crazy, but now
that was a horrible trade on paper, and now it looks really good for you. Like you lucked out big time. You got bailed out.
Taylor says, I'm reading there's a solid chance it was the meniscus, which could give him a chance to return this season. Obviously, ACL would be the worst case.
That's a new report. We haven't seen that yet since we've been live. That's great. Like obviously meniscus would be way there. And by the way, Wolfpack, as you're here, when we get to your questions, please do consider hitting that last minute thumbs up button, that sub button. If you're new here, you're catching the replay. Thank you again so much for being here. Likes and subs do greatly help us.
I have Mike Williams in 2 leagues. I hope he returns after the bye. Me too. Although honestly, my team, it's over. It doesn't even matter.
Nah.
Tunes, time to cut Dylan. What do you think?
Nah, maybe. I mean, it really depends. Like the thing with him though is like, would you cut Madison if you had him? If so, then sure. Because that's why you want to treat Dylan. Yes, it was nice when he had some standalone value too. If something happens to Jones, and things have happened to Jones every year, Dylan's like RB1 once Jones goes out. So, like, you got to just treat it like an Alexander Madison.
You're just treating him like a handcuff then, and you got to stop pretending he's anything more than that.
Don't even ask about him in sit starts. Just pretend like he's an elite handcuff.
He's a sit, right.
Yeah.
Denny Jennings, let's go Phillies. Drink up Wolfpack.
I'll help you there. I don't know if you could tell tonight. I've had a few more than I typically have on a Sunday.
Well, I could tell you at least did a little bit of partaking, yes.
Yeah,
Denny Jennings needed 30. I could tell you weren't the one driving home.
No, I did not.
Needed 30 from Tyreek and Tua. Pray for me. You could get that.
You could get that, absolutely. Tyreek has been like 25 a week.
I know. You probably will get that. I feel for you. I have Mike Williams and Lazard. Yeah, Lazard, I mean, six catches, 50 yards a game.
Tough day for the injuries, though. Yeah.
No work for me tomorrow. I'm celebrating the Phils. Let's fucking go. Go ahead,
yeah, Denny Jennings, let him pour, baby. Let him down.
Packers should have used Dylan more today. Play calling's one of their problems. Don't drop Dylan, okay? Denny, many beers.
A lot of beers for my man, Denny. I love it. I love Denny.
Mike Fawcett with Breece out. I have Etienne in one league, Mostert another. Can I feel confident in them?
I don't think you can feel like Breece confident, but Etienne on the rise. Like, if in 3 weeks, would we be like Etienne's close to what Breece was doing? I wouldn't be shocked by that.
It's not impossible.
Good. But Breece was like top 5. Like Breece was a first rounder. You're not going to that.
Toon says drop Gallup. Toon's like stirring up some trouble with the drop Dylan and drop Gallup. Okay,
I think he can. Honestly, as much as I've called him a hold this year, like Dak's first game didn't look good. Here's the deal. Unless you need to, like by necessity, you could drop Gallup. I'd like to see Dak shake the rust off, get another week. But hey, I've told you guys to hold Gallup, prioritize him on waivers. And if you're sick of him at this point, I can't blame you. I'm not sitting here saying he's a must hold. I'm not.
No Tunes. Denny Jennings, drunk and feeling good. I inferred that from the 40 beer emojis you sent.
I had no idea. Wow, Denny Jennings is.
Richard B says keep Gallup. Ben says the game started. That was like 15 minutes ago. But
yeah, cheers, baby.
Lifetime Dolphins fan. Love the throwback uniforms. Okay, Richard. Let's see. We don't have time for this one. Sorry, Juan. Jeremiah, I need a wide receiver. Any good waiver wire? Well, we did talk about a few. Jeremiah, just rewind it a little bit. We did mention some guys.
Parris Campbell and DPJ were the top 2 guys we're seeing so far out there mostly.
Mike Clay, Phils are winning the series. I'm still here. Thanks, guys. Your show was great as usual. 8:34. Denny's still here. Appreciate it. We still got 30 people here. Jeremiah, gosh dang it, Mostert. Thanks, gents. I'm still here too. Everybody's still here. Jalen Hurts is drunk on Broad Street.
I'm just picturing like Wolf of Wall Street where he's like, I'm still here. We're still here. Like, I'm going nowhere. Let's go, Denny Jennings. Drink them beers.
Dude, Swift not returning after the bye is killing me.
Yeah, what the hell? Like that. The whole thing was hold him out for 3 weeks so he's fully healthy. Damn.
Jeremiah says, I'm not praying for an Eagles ban. Ken wants to know, drop Dobbins?
Could, potentially, if you don't have the IR spot.
I'm not praying for an Eagles fan, Denny Jennings. Jeremiah Moore, WTF, love you guys. Bulldog, that's a good one to finish on. I hate Pitts so bad, but I just can't drop him. Bulldog, I've been struggling with that for like 5 weeks, but I think I'm going to do it.
I think it's time.
I just hate him too much. It's kind of like Allen. It's like Allen Robinson. I'm getting rid of him. What are we hanging on for? Let's do it, Bulldog. Let's do it together. Come on.
This is cut them together. This is what we end with: Denny Jennings and beers. Let's fucking go. That's what the Wolfpack is made of. That's the lifeblood. Denny Jennings and his beers. Here, I'm not fucking leaving. I'm not fucking leaving. We're here. Drink up, boys. Cheers to you, Denny Jennings. Congrats to your Phillies. Hope everybody gets what they need for the rest of Week 7. I'll be back live Tuesday for all your waiver wire. We did the early waiver wire tonight. I'll be much more in depth on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. That thumbs up on the way out, like, subs, all that good stuff is so greatly appreciated, Wolfpack. Thank you so much for spending your time. All our recap coverage, rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed fancy wolves. And in that world of fancy sheep, be the wolf guys.
Later.
Beers.